Hello, Peter Knego here from Midship Cinema with the rustiest old tubs you could possibly imagine, seen on the Huangpu River the day we disembarked the SS Shanghai. This wraps up my series dedicated to that beautiful but funky old ship, and I really do hope you enjoy. Okay, on with the show. After disembarking the Shanghai, we checked into Shanghai's historic Peace Hotel, then walked along the famous Bund riverfront to catch the afternoon cruise down the Huangpu River.
Here we are in Shanghai, about to take a boat around the Bund.
We had our own stateroom, for lack of a better word, that overlooked a portside promenade. It was a cold day, so this would be a nice place to come back to after standing on deck. And as you can see, my partner Mike was thrilled. What many fellow Westerners don't know is that China had an impressive fleet of soon-to-vanish merchant ships at the time, so this should be a treat for those who love vintage and obscure things that float. Our ship spun around, giving us a full view of the Bund. This protected historical district in central Shanghai lines the western bank of the Huangpu River with buildings that date from the 1860s through 1930s. And on its northern end is the beautiful Peace Hotel, the 1929-built former Cathay Hotel. And speaking of former cafes, here's the fabulous but forlorn SS Shanghai, which is probably best known for her 1961 to 1976 career as P&O Line's Cathay. I'm pretty certain this green dragon-like vessel was our ship's sister, or at least a running mate. Beyond the obvious rust and neglect, the Shanghai was a spectacular apparition for those like me who share a fascination for mid-20th century passenger ships. I tell her full story in the previous video in this series, but in short, she was built in Belgium in 1957 as Compagnie Maritime Belge's Baudouinville. Rather sadly, Shanghai had just completed her final voyage and was being readied for her one-way journey to a local scrapyard. And here comes another one of those not bad-looking Green River cruisers. And across the way in the middle anchorage, here's a handsome vintage freighter. This intriguing little passenger ship, which was also seen in Part 2, was apparently named Bai Yun, which translates to 100 clouds. Built in 1978, the Changbeng was one of approximately 9 6,000-ton, 850-passenger ships commissioned by the Chinese government between 1974 and 1980. Somewhat similar to the Soviet Mikhail Kalinin class of ships, the Changs were actually quite attractive with their long drake bows, midships funnels, open promenades, and proper cruiser spoon sterns. Almost, or perhaps equally fetching as the Shanghai, her 1958-built running mate, the HAIXING, was laid up after completing her final voyage. In many ways, I feel this 13,694 gross ton Combaliner's profile is like a miniature version of Union Castle's 1960-built flagship Windsor Castle. Agree or disagree on that, I'm sure we can all concur that they just don't build them like this anymore. The former Holland Africa liner Randfontein, HAIXING also operated as the New Holland for Royal Interocean Lines before being sold to Chinese interests who renamed her Yaohua and later HAIXING. In a few short weeks, HAIXING would sail off to Alang, India for scrapping. Oh, and if you look closely here, Shanghai and HAIXING can be seen together for one final time. One of the longest in the world, the Huangpu Cable Stay Bridge was built in 1993. In its shadow sat a sleek little liner that to me was reminiscent of the tiny Italian liners Gentile de Fabriano and Andrea Mantegna. Alas, like so many ships in this video, her name and stats are a mystery to me. If there are any viewers who can actually read Chinese or know more about these unique ships, please post that info in the comments. I'm sure a lot of people would appreciate that. Once past the Huangpu, the traffic seemed to get even more intense. Some of these ships were of a relatively recent vintage, but nearly all looked in need of a very thorough dry docking. This faded beauty looks similar to some Norwegian freighters built in the early to mid-60s. This one, the Dongfang Hong II, was a brand new research vessel that was built in 1995. And this one was definitely a bit older and in need of some TLC. I'm pretty sure this little white one is a fishing vessel. And here comes another one of those green dragons. This brand new beauty, the Yujinjiang, had just arrived from her Dutch builders to replace the Shanghai on the Hong Kong to Shanghai run. I'm not quite sure what roles these two played, but they certainly had wickedly brutalist-looking finned funnels. This bizarre little catamaran has an exaggeratedly foreshortened profile that for some reason makes me think of Dr. Seuss. Green ships and ham, anyone? If you've got a yen for vintage three-island tankers, well, I've got two for you. This first one, the Daking 51, was built in Dalian, China in 1976. And this one with a lovely cruiser spoon stern, the Daking 27, was built in 1970. While I had my cameras pointed at the Daking 27, the 1980-built CHANG Song came out of nowhere and passed us. As we approached the mouth of the Huangpu, we encountered this strange-looking ferry.
Got the sunrise over this damn river, and now I'm getting the sunset.
参加同领导人的不断的潮汐平缓之刻，长江、黄浦江与东海的三国水流相会。
Before I knew it, that bizarre-looking ferry we saw earlier was overtaking us with what looked like a big open mouth. Near the convergence of the Huangpu and Yangtze rivers, we spotted this single-screwed beauty, an American-built former C4 Mariner class cargo ship, possibly an ex-States Line vessel. Shortly after we turned back upriver to do it all over again, we encountered the departing Baiyun, which we saw earlier berthed near the Shanghai. You might want to rewind like I did several times to see how shockingly dilapidated this old bulk carrier was. The rust and neglect on this one make the ghost ship Antonio Grazza look pristine. Utterly fascinating to see such a wreck propel itself, a veritable zombie of ships. Looking back with 20/20 hindsight, I'm actually surprised at how luxurious our Huangpu excursion ship was. It was nice to have another pass by the Yujinjiang, which was supposedly still in service, but operating between China and Korea in 2023. This little Chinese-built cutie was called Peng Lai. Built in 1987, she measured 2,239 gross tons and was retired in 2014. To this day, I can't make out the name on this CHANG Class ship, which looks quite immaculate in comparison with the CHANG Song and CHANG Beng, also featured in this video. And speaking of CHANG Beng, here she comes now, looking a bit scruffy but very determined. Apologies for the wavering focus in the dimming light. And here, for a brief moment, we've got two Changs in one shot. Alas, I only caught a quick glimpse of the busy Pudong shipyard as we passed. It was a lovely violet twilight by the time we reached the Huangpu Bridge. For the remainder of our stay in Shanghai, I reached out to the HAIXING's owners, hoping to secure a visit, but my efforts were all in vain. Still, I'm grateful to have at least seen her with my own eyes. It was so easy to imagine this beautifully lit former Dutch liner, in her heyday, cruising through African waters. At that time, the Oriental Pearl Tower was the dominating feature of the rapidly transforming new Pudong district, which is now filled with skyscrapers. Like the HAIXING, the Shanghai looked evocative lit up in the night setting, which diminished all evidence of rust and decay. We spent the next few days exploring the Shanghai region, which included a visit to the Oriental Pearl Tower. At that time, the entire new Pudong district across the river was a sea of scaffolds as it was being completely transformed from crumbling old warehouses and factories into a modern metropolis. But first we had to purchase the ferry ticket.
Yeah, right.
Once there, it was hard not to get caught up in a pounding spectacle of red and yellow. I was thrilled to see this landmark, but of course I was even more intrigued by the views it would provide. This 1,404-foot television tower was completed the prior year in 1994 and remained the tallest building in all of China until 2007. Once inside, we purchased tickets for the top observation platform, which is at 1,148 feet, or 350 meters. And what a panorama of vertigo-inducing vantages it provided, from the Bund across the river to some stunning final aerial views of those alluring and exotic ships on the Huangpu. These are actually the last shots I would get of the Shanghai, with the tug alongside to help nudge her off to her final resting place. Just ahead of her was a modern Chinese ferry, and off in the distance, the equally ill-fated HAIXING. There were some other interesting ships in view, but my focus and heart was with the Shanghai. I felt so privileged to have experienced this last in a breed of once elegant ships, quite literally just in the nick of time. For a few more years, ships like this one would continue to populate the Huangpu, but most have now long since vanished. In fairness to Mike, the next day was dedicated to local tourism. Even then, during its transition into a space-age megalopolis, Shanghai was a fascinating place. If you go there and want to stay in surrounds that evoke the 1931 Empress of Britain, check out the beautiful Peace Hotel. I'll sign off here on the Bund with a nighttime view of the then brand new Oriental Pearl. Until next time, xie xie.